Heraclon Publishing presents Sadia, written by Colleen Nelson, narrated by Aniqa Qadir. For Isabella, Evan, and Grace Deely. Chapter 1. After 3 years of living in Winnipeg, the cold of a February morning still shocked me. My teeth ached from it as I shuffle-walked from Dad's car to the front doors of Laura Secord High School. I got to my locker as Mariam, my best friend, and the rest of the kids who took the bus stampeded through the front entrance. I was about to call out to her, but something in the way she darted past me, head down, feet moving quickly, as if she didn't want to be seen, made me stop. Weird, I thought. We'd been texting each other all weekend. Why would she ignore me? "Hi, Sadia," Carmina said as she breezed past me. She didn't stop to talk, but headed toward the washroom, lugging her backpack. With a resigned sigh, I realized where Mariam had been going, and why she wanted to escape notice. My notice. My fingertips were still numb with cold as I opened my locker and grabbed books for my morning classes. First stop, homeroom. Only grade 9 students at LS High School have homeroom. I guess they thought we needed the extra attention. It didn't bother me. I liked my homeroom, and I really liked my teacher, Mr. Lettner, who taught our global issues and English classes. When I walked into Class 9B, he was already at his desk typing on his computer. Mr. Lettner was tall and skinny and had a beard, but was bald, which seemed kind of funny. Like, if he could grow hair on his face, why not his head? I'd been intimidated by him the first day of high school. He had a deep voice and towered over me, but I came to discover that he never yelled. He didn't have to. He was one of those teachers kids were quiet for, because most of the time we wanted to hear what he had to say. "Morning, Sadia. Have a good weekend?" I gave him a weak nod as I sat down at my desk, preoccupied about Mariam. I knew why she'd gone to the washroom. It was to take off her hijab before class started. "Everything okay?" he asked, zeroing in on me. "Yeah," I answered, but anyone could tell things weren't okay. I have one of those faces that you can read even if you don't know the alphabet. Big brown eyes, long lashes, and wide lips that I can squeeze and squish into 100 different positions. Rubber lips, Dad calls them. I sunk lower in my seat and kept my eyes fixed on the desk ahead of me, corners of my lips turned down. I might even have sighed. There was no point in talking about it to Mr. Lettner. There was nothing he could do. Mariam had mentioned dejobbing a while ago. I'd assumed it was just talk, but then one day before winter break, she'd gone to the washroom with Carmina and come back without her headscarf. I'd stared at her long hair and uncovered head. She looked so bare. The hijab was distracting, she'd told me, and she needed to concentrate for the test we were having that morning. 100 warnings rang in my head. Since that day, she'd been taking the headscarf off more and more often. Egyptian, Mariam had large green eyes, wide cheekbones, and skin a shade darker than mine. She complained about her nose, saying it was too big and she wished it were straight and narrow like mine, but she was just being dramatic. Her nose was fine. Without her hijab, she'd toss her hair over her shoulder and throw looks at me that said I should ditch my hijab too. I'd thought about it. How could I not? We went to a school where only a handful of girls wore hijab. It would be easy to look like everyone else. But that wasn't how I'd been raised, and neither had Mariam. Islam was clear. Females, once they were old enough, should dress modestly. And for our families, that meant keeping everything but our faces, hands, and feet covered. I hoped dejobbing was just a phase for her, something she was testing out. I looked up as Mariam walked into the class with Carmina. Today, not only had she taken off her hijab, she'd also changed out of the long tunic top she usually wore and put on a tight t-shirt. I recognized it as one of Carmina's. Hollister was splashed across the front in curvy writing. I kept my eyes down, trying to ignore her outfit. I could almost feel her waiting for me to say something, but I didn't want to give her the satisfaction. If she was dejobbing for attention, she'd have to get it from someone else. "Hey," Carmina said, drawing the word out and flashing me a glossy-lipped smile. Carmina is Filipino and has dark hair that hangs straight and shiny. She's a shampoo commercial come to life. Even though she was aiding and abetting the dejobbing, I wasn't mad at her. She didn't get why Mariam changing out of her normal clothes was a big deal, but Mariam did. Mom had warned me about things like this. She'd sat me down before I started high school and told me that I might want to do things like Mariam was doing now. But she said it was up to me to make the right choice. I'd nodded. She'd also said it can be hard living in a place like Canada, where so many people have different beliefs. But that was why they had picked it as our new home, because Canada was a place that accepted differences. We'd left Syria just before things went haywire. Most of our relatives had already moved to the UK, so we'd gone there first and stayed with family while we waited for our Canadian visas to come through. The position Dad had accepted at the University of Manitoba meant we'd be moving to a place we knew nothing about. When I thought back to those first months in Canada, it made me cringe. I didn't know anything compared to now. After the first day of school, my older brother, Azim, had picked me up from school and held my hand on the walk home, even though I was 12 and he was 15. I complained about missing my friends and living in a place where I couldn't understand what people said. His first day of school had probably been just as awkward as mine, but instead of complaining, he comforted me, reassuring me things would get better. He was right, of course, but there had been some difficult days at the beginning. The transition for Dad had been easier. He'd learned English in the UK as a university student and spoke with a British accent that he was slowly losing the longer we lived in Canada. Mom's English wasn't as good as Dad's, but she worked at it every day, going to classes at the language center and joining conversational English groups. She took it as a challenge to master a language that had nothing in common with Arabic. I knew it was her dream to work again. In Syria, she'd been the head librarian at Damascus University. She and Dad would walk to work together after they saw us off to school. But in Canada, things changed. She became a stay-at-home mom, taking the bus to do her shopping and looking after our house. She called her parents and sisters often, FaceTiming them at their flats in England. When we went to the public library, she gazed longingly at the shelves of books, watching the librarians go about their work with hawkish interest. Since we'd left Syria, I'd become more Canadian than I would have thought possible. With barely a trace of an accent, I was a top student. My memories of Syria were tucked in a shoebox under my bed, the connection to my home country fading year by year. I cast a quick glance at Mariam. Carmina passed her a tube of pink lip gloss, which she smeared across her lips. She turned to me, her lips shining like they'd been lacquered. "What?" she asked. It was a challenge. I could see it in the arch of her eyebrow. "Nothing," I replied, frowning at the thought of what her parents would do if they found out how she was dressing at school. "Okay, everyone, get settled," Mr. Lettner called. "Oh, Canada is going to start in a minute." There was the usual foot-dragging as people got to their seats and slapped binders onto desks. The bell that signaled the start of morning classes rang, and today's student announcer said, "Please stand for the singing of O Canada." Beside me, Mariam whispered, "It's Josh." I gave her a quizzical look. "On the announcements," she explained giddily. I had to bite my tongue. Since when was hearing Josh Jensen on the announcements a big deal? As the music started, Carmina gave Mariam a conspiratorial smile that could only mean one thing. It was news to me that Mariam liked Josh. I mean, he was funny, smart, super athletic, and cute. He had brown eyes and blonde hair, shaved short on the sides and left longer on top, so it swooped down over his forehead. Tons of girls had crushes on him. I saw them drooling over him all the time. But Mariam and Josh had nothing in common. It would make sense if I had a crush on Josh. And if I was being honest, maybe I did a little. We both liked sports, had been the student council sports reps last year, and ran intramurals at our middle school. Watching Mariam's bright-eyed smile as Josh spoke gave me an unexpected pang of jealousy. What if he liked her back? I took a deep breath and forced myself to relax. What did it matter? Neither of us could date him. Josh made some announcements about upcoming school events and then said, Tryouts for the Junior Varsity All-City Preseason Basketball Tournament start today in the gym at lunch. It's a co-ed team, so anyone in grade 9 or 10 is welcome to try out. I perked up. Mr. Lettner was coaching the tournament team this year and had given us a heads up about tryouts. Making the co-ed team meant I would be a shoo-in for the school's JV girls team, even though I was only in grade 9. I was the only girl in hijab I knew who played basketball. I blame my brother. When we moved into our house in Winnipeg, he spent hours outside shooting hoops. Mom got sick of me watching from the window and shooed me outside to join him. It wasn't just that I liked spending time with my brother, it was the swish of the net when a shot went in and the quick rhythm of the ball against the pavement. I liked being on my toes, anticipating Azim's next move, like in a fast-moving chess game. I wasn't as good as Azim, but I could do a crossover that rivaled his. I was quick and gave him a run for his money when he played one-on-one. My last birthday, Azim got me a poster of my favorite player, Kyle Lowry of the Toronto Raptors, and Dad bought me a pair of real basketball shoes, black and turquoise high tops with Michael Jordan's silhouette on the side. When Josh walked into class after he'd finished the announcements, Mariam tracked his progress down the aisle to his desk beside Alan. I didn't understand where her sudden interest in Josh had come from. It had practically sprung up overnight, and I wondered if he was the reason for the clothes and the lip gloss. Carmina had a crush on a guy named Daniel in grade 10, who she talked about all the time, even though she'd never actually had a conversation with him. Carmina had always been more interested in boys than Mariam and me, but lately her obsession with having a boyfriend had reached a new high. I found it nauseating, but clearly Mariam didn't. In fact, it looked like it had rubbed off on her. As Mariam watched Josh sit down, I read the word Mr. Lettner had written on the board. Perspective. "Anyone want to tell me what that word means?" he asked. A few kids were on their phones, not paying attention. He paused, staring at them until they realized, and put them away. "Like in art, it shows how near or far something is," Carmina said. "You can lose it," Alan offered, as in, I'm losing perspective. There were snickers from a few kids. Alan was Josh's best friend, but unlike Josh, Alan was a jerk and thought it was funny to make up rude nicknames for people, and burp so loud he was sent to the office for disrupting class. Josh kept trying to assure me that underneath all the rude behavior, Alan was a good guy, but I didn't see it. Mr. Lettner gave a reluctant nod, but I could tell he was looking for something else. He narrowed his eyes at us, as if he could send the answer telepathically. "Point of view," Riley said quietly. He sat at the back and didn't usually say much. Not because he wasn't smart. He was just really shy. "Right!" Mr. Lettner jumped off the table he was perched on and went to his computer. "Understanding what perspective is will be essential to completing this new project." There were a few groans, but not from me. Good, I thought. Something to take my mind off Mariam and the smell of her cherry lip gloss. Mr. Lettner turned on the smartboard at the front of the class and a website appeared. "If you give a kid a camera," he read. "Anyone heard of this before?" No one put up their hand. "Anyone heard of the picture book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie? Your parents might have read it to you when you were little." I hadn't, but when I looked around the room, a lot of kids had their hands up. Mr. Lettner went to his desk and picked up a book with a mouse in overalls on the cover. "It's one of my kids' favorites," he said. "If you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to ask for a glass of..." He broke off, and a bunch of kids finished the sentence with, "milk." Mr. Lettner turned the page. "If you give a mouse some milk, he'll probably ask you for a straw." Mr. Lettner nodded and put the book on his desk. "You get the idea." I didn't get it. I frowned at him. I wanted him to explain about the book. How would I understand the assignment if I didn't know what everyone else did? Mr. Lettner pointed to the smartboard. "I want to show you this project that a teacher started in India. She wanted to give kids living in poverty a chance to tell their stories. It's called If You Give a Kid a Camera. What do you think would happen if you got cameras?" "Duh, we'd take pictures," Alan suggested sarcastically. "Hopefully," Mr. Lettner replied, frowning at Alan's rudeness. "And if you take pictures, we'll want to share them. And if you share them..." There was a pause as everyone thought about it. "We'll show people how we see the world." This time the answer came from Josh. Yes! Sometimes Mr. Lettner put his finger to his nose and pointed at the person who gave the right answer. He did this for Josh, which made Josh grin. Perspective, understanding global issues like poverty and war and the environment, is all about perspective. The If You Give a Kid a Camera project was such a success in India that it has spread to other developing countries. Brazil, Sudan, Thailand. Kids around the world were empowered to share their stories through their photos. He gave a dramatic pause and looked out at all of us, then pulled a hard plastic case from under his desk. I've got 28 digital cameras for you to use for the next few weeks. It's going to be a bit of an experiment to see what images you capture. I want you to take photos of the things that matter to you, moments that you want to share with us. Not posed photos, but real life. I want you to notice things you haven't noticed before. Take a fresh look at things, and present photos that show life from your perspective. There was a chorus of complaints. Another project? We just got a big assignment in bio, too. How many marks is it worth? Mr. Lettner didn't let anybody derail him. He moved around the class handing out the outline for the project. The title in bold letters read, If You Give a Kid a Camera. The marking guide was below. It was worth 40% of our final grade. I raised my eyebrows at him and pointed it out to Mariam. Can't we just use our phones? Carmina asked. She was addicted to Instagram and Snapchat. No, Mr. Lettner shook his head. And try not to let this become a selfie bonanza. There is more to photograph in the world than just your faces. He sort of grimaced when he said the last part. I want all the photos saved on the memory card inside the camera. He pulled a square piece of plastic out of one of the cameras and held it up. Mr. Lettner changed the screen from the home page of If You Give a Kid a Camera to show us the young photographers and the pictures they'd taken. We all sat silently as he clicked through. Based on what we'd discussed in global issues about poverty in developing countries, I expected to see kids in shacks or playing in a garbage pile or standing by a well with a leaky tap. But the photos that flashed on the screen showed kids playing soccer and splashing in puddles. There were some pictures of kids with invented toys and playing in a band of instruments created out of garbage. In most of the pictures, the kids were laughing. Despite the living conditions, the photographers focused on the joy in their lives, not the hardship. Mr. Lettner brought the screen back to the home page. The kids who got the cameras showed us what life was like from their perspective. They used it as a communication tool, and as we know, a lot of global issues can be solved through understanding. I can't believe you're trusting us with cameras, Xander said. Funny you should say that, because I'm not. A form was emailed home today letting your parents know about our project. The cameras cost $200, so if they're lost or damaged, you're on the hook for the cost. We'll post some of the photos on the blog, so make sure they are appropriate. He gave Alan a pointed look. All the grade 9 homerooms had a blog for students to keep track of assignments. As part of our class mark, we also had to sign up to write a post each term. I'd written one in first term about Ramadan, the holiest month of the Islamic calendar. Kids at school couldn't believe I fasted every day for a month. As weird as it sounded to them, I liked fasting. A little discomfort at school meant a big payoff at home. Mom spent the day in the kitchen, cooking food for when we broke the fast each night at sundown. Last year, to mark the end of the fasting period, Mariam's family had joined us for Eid al-Fitr, and we all ate together. It had been my favorite Eid since we'd moved to Canada. Do we get the cameras today? Your parents have to email the form back to me, and then you can take them home. Despite the complaints from other kids, a lot of ideas about what I could photograph ran through my head. Basketball, to start with, my runners, some of Mom's Rizbi Halib, the best creamy sweet toast ever. This is stupid, Mariam mumbled beside me. I thought she'd be excited about the project. I think it sounds fun, Carmina said. Me too. There's nothing cool in my life, Mariam replied. It'll just be a bunch of boring pictures of me at home. My parents don't let me do anything, she whined. You like to sew. Maybe you could take pictures of some of the stuff you've been making. Mariam shot me a look, like I didn't know what I was talking about. I tried not to let it bother me, but between the de-jobbing and the attitude, I didn't need a new perspective to see that Mariam was pushing me away. What I didn't know was why. Chapter 2. I ate my lunch so quickly I was finished before most kids had unpacked their sandwich. "What's the rush?" Mariam asked. She lazily opened a container of leftovers, rice and lentils and curry that she'd heated in the microwave. The smell wafted over and I took a second to enjoy it. Mariam's mom was a really good cook. Going to her house for dinner was like eating at a gourmet Egyptian restaurant. "Basketball tryouts," I told her, sucking the last drops out of my juice box. The carton crumpled in my hands. Mariam looked at Carmina and grimaced. She'd played basketball last year when we were in middle school, but not with much enthusiasm. I think she gave up before the season finished. "Why would you want to play basketball anyway?" Mariam asked. She looked at Carmina, who was staring across the cafeteria at her grade 10 crush. "Why wouldn't you?" I shot back. "Boys don't like girls who play sports." I held my tongue, sure that if I said anything, I'd regret it. Then I stuffed my lunch containers back in my bag and stood up. "Whatever, I'm going. See ya." I didn't look back, but I'm pretty sure I heard her and Carmina giggling as I walked away. When I got to the gym, it was almost all boys. "You're here early," Josh said as I went past him to the girls' change room. He was sitting on a bench, tying his shoes. New white and silver Air Jordans. "So are you." "Gotta get a jump on the competition," he said with a sly grin. Josh stood up and jogged over to a wire basket of balls Mr. Lettner had put out for us. He picked one and dribbled it, then ran past me and did a layup. I laughed to myself. If Mariam really liked Josh, she'd know this was where she needed to be. I walked into the change room. The other girls were getting changed into shorts and t-shirts. I went into a stall and took off my regular outfit, long pants and long-sleeve shirt, to put on my sweats and a different long-sleeve shirt. The headscarf had to stay on, and when I came out of the stall, I took a quick look in the mirror and then found a spot on a bench to put on my basketball shoes. Being in there gave me a minute to get focused and concentrate on what I had to do to make the tournament team. More girls came in, and I did a quick head count. There were 8 of us trying out, and there would probably be about 20 boys. Mr. Lettner said he'd take a team of 12 to the tournament, but the rules were that at least a quarter of the team had to be girls. That meant at least 3 girls would make it. I said a quick prayer that one of the 3 would be me. Most of the boys were already bouncing balls and taking shots on net when I got to the gym. My stomach did a flip and my fingers tingled. I couldn't wait to feel the bumpy rubber of the ball and the slap as it hit the floor and bounced back into my hands. Mr. Lettner blew his whistle. The thumping of balls stopped and we hustled toward him. I grabbed a ball and held it against my waist. "Okay, everyone," Mr. Lettner said. "We'll start with some shooting drills. Girls on one side and boys on the other. Then we'll do some one-on-one. Ready?" He blew his whistle again, and I ran to the hoop and took my first shot. It went in with a swish, which I thought was a good sign. "Nice one," a voice piped up behind me. Jillian Triggs sent her shot sailing through the air and it went in too. We took our spot in line and waited for another turn. "Which guys do you think will make it?" Jillian asked. She wasn't in Mr. Lettner's class and hadn't gone to my middle school, so I didn't know her well. She was a head taller than me, and I could see her fluorescent pink sports bra peeking out from under her tank top. "Josh, Rory, Thomas, Lucas, and maybe Alan," I added as he missed his shot from the free throw line, to a lot of jeering. "But after that, they're all kind of the same. Yeah, Mohammed's pretty good too. He's on my street and we play together in the summer sometimes." It was my turn again, so I dribbled the ball and took another shot. It bounced off the rim and back to me. I shot again. This time, it went in. Mr. Lettner wandered over with his clipboard. "Okay, girls, show me what you can do." Jillian took a shot that arced into the air and through the net like she'd buttered it. Mr. Lettner whistled in appreciation. "Let's play some one-on-one. Who's up first?" My hand went up, and I looked over at Jillian, who had also raised her hand, and grinned. "You too," Mr. Lettner said. Jillian rolled her ball to the wall, and I took my spot at the top of the key. Jillian crouched down, her ponytail swinging over one shoulder. I slapped the ball and dribbled it a few times, turning my body to guard it. Jillian moved in, swiped for it, but I dodged her, driving up the left and took a shot. It went in, and I bit back a smile. My runner squeaked as I ran back to the top of the key. Jillian had the ball, but this time she drove right. I had my hands up, jumping to block her. My arm caught my hijab, which was loose after all the running and jumping. It fell over my eye, and I was distracted. Jillian saw her moment and moved past me easily. She took her shot as I stopped to fix my scarf. Mr. Lettner blew his whistle. "Okay, Sadia?" "Yes," I groaned, frustrated. It was like having to stop to tie a shoelace. "Next 2 girls, you're up." My hair kept leaking out of the bonnet cap underneath my headscarf. I had to move to the side to fix it. The first time I'd worn a hijab, it had taken me 5 minutes to get it on my head properly. Now I could fix it without looking in a mirror in less than a minute. But not in the middle of the gym. Mom and Dad had agreed I'd start wearing hijab when I turned 13. The first day of grade 8. Mariam and I had walked into school with the head covering, and people had given us funny looks. They didn't know hijab had always been in our future, so I guess they were surprised. I was glad that Mariam had started wearing her hijab at the same time. It made it easier having her beside me. I was proud of the hijab and of what it meant, that I was choosing to be modest. A lot of people thought that I covered myself to avoid a man's gaze, but it was more than that. It was a way to express my spiritual connection to God, and it was how I had been raised. But still, walking into my middle school wearing hijab that first day had been nerve-wracking. I'd left grade 7 as a tomboy, playing soccer at lunch with the boys, but I came back covered up and feeling older, more mature. None of the kids asked any questions, but I saw them looking at Mariam and me as if they weren't sure we were the same people. I didn't play soccer at lunch that day, worried that I'd mess up my hijab and not be able to put it back on properly. Instead, Mariam and I had stayed in the cafeteria. But when I'd seen the boys come in, sweaty and red-faced after lunch, Josh bragging that he'd scored 2 goals, my insides had twisted. Just because I wore hijab didn't change who I was on the inside. The next day, I left Mariam at our cafeteria table with Carmina. I went outside and hung around the goalpost, waiting for the boys to notice me. When the ball was kicked out of bounds, I got to it first. "Are you playing?" Josh asked, running up beside me. "Whose team am I on?" "We get Sadia," he shouted out. I lifted the ball over my head, tossed it to Josh, and ran into the game. After that, it was like nothing had changed. My hijab didn't bother me so much when I was playing sports outside. The rules were loose and everyone else had on their school clothes. But it was a hindrance now. When I was trying out for a team and everyone else was in their gym clothes, sudden movements and running could make it slip out of place. I gave a frustrated groan as I felt the scarf slide farther back and had to stop to fix it again. "Do you have to wear that?" Jillian asked, coming up beside me. "Yeah," I said. "I can't take it off, especially here." Did she understand what I meant by here? In public with a lot of people around, especially males who weren't my family? It must be such a pain. I was about to argue that it wasn't, but who was I kidding? I couldn't take a jump shot without the bottom of the scarf flying in my face. It wasn't like it was my first time playing wearing hijab, but I needed to do more than just play to make the team. I needed to bring it. "And aren't you hot?" She stuck out her tongue like a dog panting. "I'm sweating and I'm wearing shorts and a tank top." I looked down at my black sweatpants and shirt that covered my arms all the way to my wrists. "Yeah," I admitted, hot and irritated. Mr. Lettner blew his whistle. "Scrimmage time!" Everyone put their balls into the wire bin by the equipment room and met in the middle of the gym. Mr. Lettner numbered us off. 1, 2, 1, 2. Alan kept dodging his turn to be counted until he was sure to get a number 1, which was Josh's team. I was number 1 too, but Jillian was on the other team, and so were a lot of the really good players. It looked like the teams were lopsided, but Josh didn't care. He called a quick team huddle, assuming the role of team captain. "Sadia, you're small forward. Alan, point guard. I'll play power forward." He pointed to the other kids, assigning them positions. I looked at Jillian's team, where she was doing the same thing. We all put our hands into the middle of the circle and shouted, 3, 2, 1, thunder, at the same time. Half the kids went to sit on the bench, waiting to be rotated in, and the other 5 of us took our spots on court. Jillian was center and towered over Abby, the girl Josh had picked for the position. Abby was long-limbed but didn't move quickly. Jillian got past her and threw the ball up court. Josh intercepted it, and the play switched toward our zone. "Josh!" I called for the ball, holding my hands up. Muhammad got in my face, but I dodged and caught the pass from Josh, drove to the net, and scored. Josh came running at me for a high five. The scrimmage kept going like that for the next 20 minutes. Every 2 minutes, we subbed in new players, but my heart was racing each time I took a break on the bench. Beads of sweat popped out on my forehead, and I wished I could have played in shorts like the other kids, or even just a short-sleeved shirt. Josh and I ran on again for the last shift. We'd just scored, and the point guard on Jillian's team, Thomas, slapped the ball to put it in bounds. We all ran up court, ready to defend their press. Thomas was trying to toss the ball to Jillian, but we'd boxed her in, and she couldn't dart away. As the ball flew through the air, I jumped up and tipped it out of her hands. I didn't see Abby's elbow. My hijab blocked vision on my right side. The bone came down hard on my nose, and I felt a warm spurt of blood on my upper lip. Mr. Lettner blew his whistle, and the game stopped. I cupped my hand over my nose and mouth. Whoa! Sadia, you okay?" I nodded, but kept my head down. A few drops of dark red blood dotted the gym floor. "I'll get an ice pack," Jillian said, and raced to the gym office. Josh took my arm and led me to the bench. Mr. Lettner handed me a wad of tissues. "At least we'll get a free throw," Josh said, trying to find the silver lining. My nose throbbed. I knew that if my hijab hadn't been in my way, I would have been able to see Abby's elbow coming down and could have ducked. "What happened?" Mariam asked when I came back to class. I'd been sitting in the office waiting for the bleeding to stop. She'd probably heard from the other kids, but it was nice to see her concerned. "I got hit in the face. I'm okay." Every time I scrunched up my face, it felt hot and tingly. "It looks kind of swollen." I gingerly touched the skin on either side of my nose. "Yeah, I hope it's not broken." And that is why I don't play sports. I wanted to roll my eyes at her so badly, but I restrained myself. I didn't know why she was acting like this. Did she really think sports were dumb? I'd always been the sporty one, even though Mariam had 3 brothers and I only had 1. She'd never understood why I'd rather play soccer at recess than sit on a bench and talk. But we had so many other things in common that it didn't used to matter. Used to. Mariam had arrived a year before me. Even if we hadn't both been Muslim and attended the same mosque, we would have been friends. We used to stay up late watching movies and talking. She was so easy to be around, and always had some new idea to try, like ambushing Azim with water guns when he came home from school, or baking cookies for the school bake sale. I missed that Mariam. And it wasn't like her friendship with Carmina was new either. Carmina had always been our third. Like, if we had to do a project with 3 people, she was the one we asked. We all ate lunch together and hung out after school, but lately, I'd noticed I was becoming the third. The 2 of them were doing things together while I was on the periphery. "How's the nose?" Josh asked as we packed up our books at the end of the day. "I'll live," I said, and tried